Again, thank you so much for your time. Welcome to Team Talk on Front Run. Firstly, let me ask you, what does your appointment as Chief Executive Officer of Simba Sports Club represent, for you?
For me, as I said first, I told many, I'm just very, very honored. I think it's a fantastic opportunity as a woman to be given this platform, but also as a young person. It sends a very strong message that there's companies, even those in industries that you least expect, to be very progressive. Progressive in terms of recruiting and onboarding a very young CEO, but also progressive in terms of onboarding a woman. I'm defeating all stereotypes. So it means a lot to me. I'm deeply honored, but also it's because of a club that I love, that I'm so passionate about.
And with the euphoria of your appointment having simmered down a little bit now, are you seeing, what would you say you have observed is the actual reaction, in Tanzania, in the country at large, and the football community, even on the continent?
No, I think it's been a very, very positive reaction from my friends at CAF, giving me a formal acknowledgement, also inviting me to come to Egypt to do an understudy of two big clubs, from all the outpouring love and support here in Tanzania, from politicians, business people, activists. I think it sends a very strong signal, because it's one thing for someone to be appointed, a young woman to be appointed in any position, but in an industry that's really, really plagued with men, not in a bad way, but it's just the nature of the industry. I think it sends a very strong signal that things are changing. And even in countries that maybe you wouldn't expect, like Tanzania, that we're very progressive. And it all goes down to vision. If you have a visionary leader as your owner, or as someone who's on your board as your board chairman, naturally it trickles down to every different sphere of work, and the appointments that we have. And if you look at the average age within our office as well, it's very, very progressive. And I think it all goes down to vision of your leader.
Let's talk about your trips to Egypt, to the biggest clubs, as you say, the club of the century, Al Ahly, and also Zamalek, if I'm not mistaken. What did you do there? What are some of the things you learned whilst you were there?
I think for me, it was to do an understudy, similar to what Al Ahly right now is doing, an understudy of Barcelona, because they're trying to mirror their growth. In my role as Simba, I said, what club in Africa can I learn the best from? So I said, the market leader in our continent, to me, is Al Ahly. If I look at sub-Saharan Africa or in my little region, I don't have much to benchmark myself on. And I look at every sphere, technically in terms of performance, digital in terms of engagement and content, commercial in terms of sponsorship, management in terms of the people, the profile, how they engage their various stakeholders. So that's who I want to learn from. So when I went there to do a visit, I not only was learning from them, but also from Zamalek, as several time champions. They have fantastic experience, their facilities. So the purpose of my trip was really to learn and establish a relationship so that I can formally go through this understudy process. So with Al Ahly, soon we'll be signing an MOU for us to formally learn in each and every single department, but also to go to CAF. As I said, my goal is to be in the Champions League, not only for men, but also for women. Next year will be the first Women's Champions League. So part of my visit there was to really understand, what is the women's agenda? What is it that I'm going to see? And actually my first stop between you and I was to understand the CAF women's strategy. That's what I wanted to learn. So I actually went to meet the head of women's football development, because for me, this is something so close to my heart.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, between you and I, the women's team, Simba Queens, is more likely to win the Women's Champions League in Africa faster than the men, because that's how much faith I have in them and their ability to deliver.
Yeah, when you talk about that, I want to look at the Simba structures. You guys have an under 17 side, you have an under 20 side. Like, development is strong for the men's side. Is it also strong for the Simba Queens as well?
Yes, it is. And I think this year, the biggest change that we made is I doubled the budget. The budget was X amount. And I said, no, this is not enough. If we want to compete at the highest level, I need to double my budget. The only thing that I was constrained with this year is I wanted to recruit several foreign players, but due to COVID restrictions in many countries, I wasn't able to bring them on board. But I said, that's not a problem. We have a window coming up soon, but also towards the end of the season, and as we prepare for the Champions League. So I'm very, very happy. I'm content. And my goal was to double that budget for me to compete at the highest level. And for those of you that don't know, we are the champions also in Tanzania. So Simba Queens is the champion. So not only the men, but also women.
But obviously you guys have taken a lead in that regard, you know, in the women's side in Tanzania, like your league has been running. For example, here in South Africa, the league has just started. It only has got one season. What would countries like South Africa that's still running pretty much amateur leagues for women learn from leagues like yours?
I think it's about setting requirements here in our it's a must for teams like ourselves to have a women's league, and not just to invest loosely, but you have to invest consistently. We cannot solely put weight and onus on the men's league. Yes, in terms of viewership and appetite and engagement, naturally, globally, it's not just here in Africa or in Tanzania alone. Globally, engagement and viewership is on the men's league, but still we need to invest. And the best way to do that is to actually make it a requirement of federations that teams, if you're competing in the top tier league in your country, you need to have a women's league. It has to be a requirement.
Have you found people that are comparing you with your predecessor? Obviously, he's come in and he's a great success, not just at Simba, everywhere he's been, basically.
I think people aren't comparing because he didn't have a smooth run. That's just being honest, because I was part of the process. I actually went as far as coming to Joburg to interview him, and I was part of the headhunting. Though a lot of people don't know that last year I was offered the job as CEO and I turned it down. I said, I'm not ready. I need to grow as a leader. I need to build my capabilities and experience. And when I'm ready, I'll take on the job. So when I told 4 board members that, they said, you know what, if that's the case, Barbara, you're not ready. You need to drive the recruitment process. You go and headhunt and find the person. I said, you know what, I'm going to do 2 things simultaneously. I'm going to headhunt, but at the same time, I'll drive the public recruitment process. And that's how I met the former CEO, and the rest is history. So I think a lot of people are not comparing us because we're completely 2 different profiles. What I bring to the table is completely different. I think people discredit local experience in this position. For you to be a successful CEO, I think right now in this country, but also in other leagues, you really need to be from the country. You really need to understand the environment, ability to deliver. And at times there's a disconnect, because if you look at the disposable income of a country like South Africa or Egypt or Nigeria or Tanzania, completely different. If you look at fan engagement, it's completely different. If you look at ticketing, merchandise, it's all completely different. So having a knack for how things are run here, it's really, really important. And unlike other countries like Uganda and Kenya, where everything is driven in English, in Tanzania, everything is in Kiswahili. So naturally, if you don't speak the language, there's also a little gap there. So I don't think people are comparing me, because profile-wise, background is totally different.
And I wanted to ask you about that, about what happened last year vis-a-vis this year in terms of your appointment. That, like you said, right now, what changed for you? Last year, was it a preparation process for you, or something changed this year where you said, definitely, I raised my hand and let's do this?
I think what changed was, at that time, they asked me, this was in June, July last year, and I said, I'm not ready as a leader. There's some boxes that I wanted to tick, and a lot of people didn't know. At the time, I was chief of staff to Mr. Mohammed Dewji, who is a 49% investor in Simba Sports Club. And in that role, there was a lot of investment projects that I was overseeing for his company. And I said, I'm a person that I like to deliver and see things through. So I want to get to at least 80% that I've ticked my boxes in that department. And once I'm satisfied, I'm ready to go. And then this role didn't come up. As you know, the person was here and he absconded. So it wasn't something we planned. And I was actually transitioning into another role, completely different from football. So at the end of the year, him and I had a very long conversation. I said, you know what? You offered me this job in June. Now it's December. I feel like I've ticked all my boxes and now I'm ready for a new challenge. And I found another role, completely different, had nothing to do with Simba. And then after he absconded, I knew that they were having this conversation, but I wasn't sure how far along it had gotten. And they said, you know what? You are the right fit. If I look at all the markers, and they were telling me that they're looking for in a CEO, someone who has experience, someone who's loyal to the club, someone who's been part of the process, who understands the vision, who understands the club culture, because that's so important. The culture of Al Ahly is very different to the culture of Zamalek. Likewise, culture of Kaiser is very different to Pirates, completely different. And for someone to have a knack to understand the differences in those culture, but also to have a passion for those clubs, really plays a fundamental role in driving its growth. So when they gave me all the criteria they were looking for in a CEO, I said, you know what, I meet and I supersede those things. Absolutely. So if you're offering me the role, I'm ready. I'm going to take it on.
I like that. I like your confidence, and you supersede it. But Barbara, women in decision-making positions, especially in football, and especially for football clubs, is not something we see all the time. I mean, in Tanzania, we can count how many Barbaras there are. In South Africa, we can count how many Mato Matlalas there are. You know what I mean? Is there a shift in changing in terms of this male-plagued industry where we're seeing people now being able to trust women who supersede and meet the expectations and the qualifications for these roles?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there's a complete shift. People are realizing that this pre-prescribed profile of what we think someone needs to have to succeed no longer exists. Before, you needed to be seasoned meaning 50 plus. You needed to be male because only men can connect with the sport. Okay. And those things do no longer exist because they realize age does not necessarily mean you're able to deliver. If anything, it'll slow you down, because slows you down in terms of pace of execution, but also slow you down in terms of your ability to innovate and create. This industry is like technology. Every day it's changing. And imagine today, head of IT in a company is like a 6-year-old man. Look at you like, okay, clearly you're not ahead of times. You need young, creative, energetic new people to be able to inject something new. So I think the stereotype is completely changing, not only on age, but on gender, because irrespective of gender, they realize that women are equally, maybe even at times more passionate about the sport. We struggle for the team, we show up for the team, we're there, we're fighting, we're cheering equally. But the focus has always been on the men. And that's the problem. Now the narrative is shifting to realize that equally there's the same fan base. They just may not appear at the stadium, but they're there.
And it also does help, with push the women agenda in terms of what we want to see in the continent, have more professional leagues for women, and also leading up to tournaments like the CAF Champions League for women.
Yes, exactly. I think if you see investment in these leagues, then naturally you start to take women seriously. But in the past, it was not a requirement. You did not have to have a women's league, and it was completely disregarded. Even in terms of sponsorship today, if I look at the sponsorship that we're getting as a women's league from the league for our Simba Queens, it's not even $10,000 per year. How can you drive an entire women's league for your based off $10,000? It's just impossible. So I think the narrative is shifting. People are changing now their perception, but it has to start from the top. And I think CAF taking this first step to start this Women's Champions League, to create this level of competitiveness amongst women in the continent, to showcase talent, because at the end of the day, it's one thing to have your league, but you need to showcase talent at the highest level. And this will be a fantastic platform for women in football to excel, not talking about administration, but on the pitch, but female coaches, female assistant coaches, the technical bench. I think it's a huge opportunity, and I'm glad that CAF has taken this up on board and is really pushing the women's agenda.
So what was first on your to-do list after your appointment as CEO?
Yeah, so for me, it was to create a benchmark. When you come in, you have a vision as to what you want to do. And I asked myself, I want to aspire to be the leading football club in the continent. Now, the question is, how do I get there? I know I need to retain all my titles in Tanzania. Every competition that I participate in, I need to secure. I need to invest heavily in players. I need to invest heavily on the bench, but also need to market my team as a fantastic global brand. But fundamentally, I need to look, what are the key ingredients that my peers have that I don't have? And the only way for me to know that is to actually see them. There's only so much you can find on Google. If I Google Al Ahly or Memlodi or Kaiser, there's only a snippet. I'm literally just skimming the surface. And I feel like learning needs to be done on the ground. And the best way for you to learn and to mirror your peers is to actually ask them. I think Al Ahly was so blown away. They said they're taken back. They've never had any team in the continent come to want to do an understudy. It shows how serious we are and about our professional growth as a team. And not just serious technically, but also on the management side, because your performance on the pitch is one thing, but I want to be able to deliver on both spheres, because I believe there's a direct correlation between what happens in management, on the pitch, and vice versa. So for them, they've never seen a level of commitment by any team to want to come to learn. So in the first month, my role was who do I want to aspire to? I know the 5 goals that I have. I know my vision, Champions of Africa in the next few years. I know my goals for this year, group stage, Champions League, retain all my titles and so on to create a big brand. But now what are the key success factors? Who can I learn from that can help me guide this process so I can set up my strategy? And that's why I've started the process of doing the understudy.
Is not doing well in the Champions League a big monkey on the back of the team?
Big time, big time. I won't even lie. It was like we were going through a funeral last year. It completely derailed us because that is your focus. You've won the league enough times that having that league equated to an ice cream, well, it's the same ice cream. But if someone says CAF Champions League is like your creme brulee, that's what you're aspiring to with them. Milkshake with ice cream on the top and cherry, and now someone takes it away from you. Immediately you're demoralized. Yes, the ice cream is still there, tastes good, but your goal was to have that milkshake, right? It hurts. It hurts. Ask anyone. It hurts. So we really did feel that pinch for a while.
So as we wrap up, Barbara, what do you think where would Simba be, say, in the next 20 years? I mean, if they're taking steps like this, appointing women, like competent people and doing well at home, and potentially what you would like to see them doing well on the continent, where do you see Simba in the next 20 years?
Club World Cup. Watch out for us. I'm very ambitious. You asked 20 years, not 10 years. In 20 years,
yeah.
Yes. I do not believe we should lower our standards. That's something we need to aspire to. Now, when we get there is another story, but that's what we need to work towards. My interim medium-term goal, CAF Champions League, Champions of Africa, 5 to 10 years. Now, in 20 years, Club World Cup.
And if I could ask, besides the understudies that you're going to undertake right now, what will it take for that to happen in that long-term goal?
I think there's many things that need to happen. Reforms in terms of how you invest in your league, change in culture and understanding. Something as simple as nutrition. If you look at Tanzania, but also East and Central Africa, if you start to ask players, let's restructure your diet, immediately it's like you're touching a pain point. But in fact, if you look at the best football players in the world, not only do they have a club nutritionist, Ronaldo and Messi and so on have hired their own personal nutritionists to optimize their diet for them to be able to enhance performance. So I feel like there's so many success factors on and off the pitch that are required for us to be able to deliver and get there. Changing things like nutrition, changing the structure of all our competitions, creating a more match fitness, investing in a nutrition center, in video analysis, onboarding people that can facilitate this growth, bringing an entire fitness team. All of this needs to be customized. And right now it's been a blueprint because this has just been the status quo. We've not been aiming to compete at the highest level. And for you to compete at the highest level, you need to look, what are your peers doing that you're not doing? Something as simple as when I went to Al Ahly versus Zamalek, it seems very minor, but one club is letting people watch their training session and another one is not, because another sees this as intellectual property. These are your trade secrets as a club, and there's a specific formula that they're using for them to excel. Their diet plan, when I looked at the nutrition, I was so shocked. I said, imagine if I bring this here, one would be chaos because you're destabilizing the status quo, but sometimes you need to ruffle a few feathers to be able to get what you want.
I said one last question. Can I sneak in one really, really, really last question? What is your opinion on Coach Peter Mosimane going to coach at Al Ahly? What does this mean, for the growth of football, not just in Southern Africa or Sub-Saharan Africa, but also how we've seen the North African teams, how great they have been, and obviously with someone that has gone to do an understudy there?
Yeah, for me, this is absolutely fantastic. I believe right now there's been a focus for the past several years, a focus of European white men as coaches across the continent. This needs to change. The best coaches on the continent are those who are from the continent, and ideally from that country. And for me, this sends a signal that the narrative is changing. If the number one club on the continent sees that our talent is valued that much, to that degree, that they're willing to outsource him across it shows you that we don't need talent from outside. That's not what we're aspiring to. Within the continent, we have what it takes. So for me, this sends the right type of signal. Also, when I look at capacity building for my team, I have our assistant coach who's been with us for the past 2-3 years. He was a former player. And I said, my role is to build capacity so that one day this Tanzanian man who has so much capability is able to run our club. Why should I be running to Belgium, to England, to Netherlands to look for a coach? Indirectly, it's an insult to our people who are beyond talented, who have a knack for the game. We need to be able to build local capacity and talent. It's like me. In the past, they had non-Tanzanian, and they said, you have talent here. Why do we need to outsource? And we need to build capacity. So this appointment to me was above and beyond, and it fits in line with the vision that we're going along. We need to build capacity so that our own coaches within our continent, for me, when I say our own, within our continent, are running our football clubs. We should not be outsourcing from the West.
Barbara Gonzalez, thank you so much. I think that you're a wealth of knowledge, and I want to congratulate you again on your appointment as CEO of Simba Sports Club, and also wish you all of the best in everything that you want to do in planting in this beautiful continent, and also, moving the agenda of women on the continent forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much.